It's a Sunday evening. You're sitting in your car in the parking lot outside your apartment, not because you have somewhere to go, but because you're not ready to go inside yet. Your mind is running, not about anything specific, just everything. The email you sent that maybe came off wrong. The decision you still can't stop second-guessing. The slow, quiet feeling that you're falling behind, even though you can't name exactly what you're falling behind on. That feeling has a name, and it's not a flaw in your character. It's a mind that was never given the right tools. Here's something most people don't know about negative thinking. It's not a bug, it's a feature, an ancient one, hardwired by evolution. The problem is that this system was designed for a world of real physical dangers. It wasn't designed for performance reviews, Instagram comparisons, or the anxiety of reading a text message twice trying to figure out the tone. We kept the ancient hardware, we just gave it modern problems. In the last 20 years, a clinical framework called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, ACT, has become one of the most research-supported approaches in all of psychology. And when you study its foundations carefully, something becomes impossible to ignore. Its core principles are almost identical to what Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca were practicing 2,000 years ago. Not by coincidence, because they were mapping the same human mind. This video gives you 9 laws, not tips, not affirmations, laws, principles that remain true whether you feel them or not. Each one is drawn from Stoic philosophy and validated by modern psychological research. Every section builds on the one before it, so stay with all of them. Let's begin. Law 1. Your thoughts are not you, they're weather. I want you to try something right now. Try to have no thoughts for 30 seconds. You couldn't do it. Nobody can. And that's the entire point. Thoughts arise the way weather forms over a city, not because the city summoned them, but because the conditions made them possible. You are not responsible for the clouds. You are only responsible for whether you decide to build your house on them. Men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things. Epictetus, Enchiridion. Modern psychologists call this cognitive fusion. It's the moment you stop observing a thought and start inhabiting it. When "I had the thought that I might fail" becomes "I am failing." And from inside that thought, everything looks like evidence of its truth. Acceptance and commitment therapy calls the antidote defusion. The Stoics called it the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty, the part of you that can observe your own mind without being governed by it. That part of you is real. It exists right now, watching your own reaction to what I'm saying. You are not the thought, "I'm not good enough." You are the one watching that thought arrive, and those are not the same thing. The next time a painful thought comes, don't argue with it. Just change the framing. Instead of "I'm a failure," say, "I notice I'm having the thought that I'm a failure." You create distance, and in that distance, you get your power back. Law 2. Acceptance is not surrender. It's where power begins. There's a man named Daniel. He's 31, lives in Denver, works in tech. 2 years ago, he made a business decision that cost him a significant amount of money, and worse, a partnership he'd spent years building. He's recovered financially, but even now, sometimes at night, he still replays the conversation, running different versions of what he could have said, what he should have caught earlier. And every time he runs that loop, he feels like he's losing the money again. Daniel isn't suffering because of what happened. He's suffering because his mind refuses to close the file on something it cannot change. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. Epictetus, Enchiridion. Epictetus wasn't telling you to celebrate the loss. He wasn't saying, pretend it didn't hurt. He was pointing at something precise. There are two layers of pain. The first is the event itself. The second is the additional suffering you create by insisting reality should be different than it is. You can do almost nothing about the first layer. The second one, that's yours to put down. This is what the Stoics called amor fati, love of fate. Not resignation, acceptance. You fully feel what happened. You fully grieve what was lost. And you also stop arguing with the fact that it's real. Because the argument never changes the outcome. It only extends the sentence. When you catch your mind relitigating something that's already done, say the words clearly. This happened. I can work with what's real. Then ask, what is one action available to me today in this moment that moves me forward? Not fixes everything, just moves.
Law 3. Feelings are information, not instructions. Nobody teaches this clearly enough, so let me say it directly. Emotions are not commands, they're messengers. And the job of a messenger is to deliver information, not to make the decision. When fear rises, it's signaling, pay attention, something may be at risk. When anger rises, it's signaling, something I value is being threatened. Both signals are real. Both have information worth hearing, but neither one is in order. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Seneca on anger. Viktor Frankl, who built an entire philosophy of meaning from surviving the Nazi concentration camps, described it this way. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space is what Seneca was pointing at. That space is what ACT tries to rebuild in people who've had it collapsed by trauma, by habit, by the relentless pace of modern life. The goal isn't to feel less. The goal is to stop letting the feeling make the decision. When a strong emotion hits, give it 30 seconds before you act on it. Name it out loud. I feel afraid right now. Let it exist without immediately trying to fix or escape it. Then ask, what do my values say to do here? Not, what does this feeling want me to do? Those are almost always different answers.
Law 4. The story is not the event.
Marcus Aurelius wrote this in his private journal, the book we now call Meditations, which was never meant to be published. If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. Here's what actually happens when something painful occurs. First, the event. Then, almost immediately, your mind attaches a meaning to it. And you don't suffer the event, you suffer the meaning. Your manager doesn't respond to your message for a day. That's the event, observable, neutral. But your mind says, he thinks I'm incompetent. The project is in trouble. My job might not be as secure as I thought. And you spend 3 hours in that story. Meanwhile, your manager was in back-to-back meetings and hasn't looked at his inbox since 9 a.m. 2 people receive the same email silence. One thinks nothing of it. One loses their afternoon to anxiety. The event was identical. The suffering came entirely from the story, and stories can be rewritten. You are not an objective recorder of reality. You're a narrator, and narratives can be revised.
When something triggers you, do this 3-step separation. 1. Write the bare, observable facts, what actually happened in one sentence. 2. Write the story your mind is building around it. 3. Write 2 other interpretations that are equally possible. You're not lying to yourself with false positivity. You're learning to see clearly. Which is the most useful thing a mind can do?
Law 5. You cannot think your way out of a fire you're still standing in. This is one the Stoics understood viscerally, and modern neuroscience has since confirmed with precision. When you're in a state of acute stress, when the brain's threat detection system is activated, the prefrontal cortex, which handles rational thinking and long-range judgment, partially goes offline. You literally cannot process complexity the way you normally can when the alarm bells are ringing. Your brain has traded nuance for speed. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations in the morning, before the Senate meetings, before the battle dispatches, before the day began pulling him in every direction. He wasn't reacting to the storm. He was building his anchor before the storm arrived. The Stoic response to depletion was never think harder. It was build structure before you need it. Strengthen the mind when conditions are calm, so that the calm is available to draw on when conditions aren't. If you're trying to interrupt a spiral in the middle of the spiral, you're already at a disadvantage. The work happens earlier. Build a 5-minute morning anchor before you check your phone. Breathe slowly. Read a single sentence from Meditations. Write down one thing you intend to embody today, not accomplish, embody. This isn't inspiration, it's installation. You're priming the operating system before the inputs begin. Law 6. Your mind looks like what you feed it. Associate with those who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve.
Seneca, Letters to Lucilius. He wrote that in 65 AD, and neuroplasticity research has since confirmed the biological mechanism behind it. Social media platforms are engineered with this in mind, not maliciously, but mechanically. Engagement maximization means emotional activation maximization. And the emotions that activate engagement most reliably are fear, anger, and envy. If you spend 2 hours a day in that input stream, you are training your brain to look for threats, injustices, and evidence that you're falling behind. And brains are very good at finding what they've been trained to look for. The Stoics called intentional curation of mental inputs prosoche, attention to the self. Not avoidance of the world, not hiding from difficulty. Deliberate, conscious selection of what you allow to take root in the mind that will, in turn, shape how you see everything else. For 1 week, whenever you feel the pull to open social media from boredom or anxiety, not genuine interest, boredom or anxiety, pause for 5 seconds. Ask, what am I actually looking for right now? Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it's distraction. Sometimes it's connection. Go get the actual thing instead of the approximation.
Law 7. What you resist grows louder. This is the law that surprises people most because it runs directly against instinct. When a painful or intrusive thought arises, every reflex you have says, push it out. Don't let it in. Think about something else. And those reflex responses are almost perfectly wrong. The Stoic approach was never suppression. It was observation. You don't fight the storm. You watch it. Never try to conquer the outer world without first conquering the inner one. Begin with what is in your power. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations.
The Stoics taught that most of the additional suffering wrapped around a difficult experience comes from the judgment we layer on top of it. The thought that says, "This shouldn't be happening." Remove the judgment, and the raw experience, while often still uncomfortable, loses the hold it had on you. The paradox of inner peace, it turns out, is this: you have to stop running from your own mind before your mind will give you rest. The next time an unwanted thought arises, instead of pushing it away, sit with it for 60 seconds. Name it without commentary. Let it exist in the room with you. You'll find that most thoughts, given space instead of resistance, move through faster than they ever would have under suppression. You're not welcoming suffering. You're removing the extra layer of suffering you are adding by fighting it.
Law 8. Values are the compass when feelings are the storm. Here is a distinction that changes how you navigate almost everything. The difference between acting from fear and acting from values. Two people receive the same critical performance review at work. One, operating from fear, shuts down, avoids his manager, and spends the following week rehearsing reasons why the feedback was unfair. The other, operating from the value, "I care about doing excellent work," asks for a follow-up meeting, takes careful notes, and uses the feedback as data. Same situation, completely different internal operating system. Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. ACT is built at its foundation on values clarification. Not goal setting, values. Goals are destinations, values are directions. You can lose a goal and still move in your values. And when you're anchored to values, difficult feelings become friction to move through rather than walls that stop you. Marcus Aurelius returned to the same question hundreds of times across the pages of Meditations, under conditions most of us will never face. What would the good person do here? Not the perfect person, not the fearless person, the good one. Someone trying to act in alignment with what they actually believe. That question is available to you right now, in whatever you're facing. Write down 3 values you actually hold, not ones you think you're supposed to have. Then, for any difficult situation this week, ask, what would someone who genuinely held these values do in this moment? Not what would feel best right now. What would be most aligned with who I'm trying to be? Law 9. The present moment is the only place you have power. Negative thinking lives in 2 time zones: the past, where regret and rumination live, and the future, where worry and projection live. The present moment almost never generates the kind of suffering the mind creates when it drifts away from it. Confine yourself to the present. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. He meant this not as a motivational slogan, but as a tactical instruction. The past is outside your control. The future is outside your control. The only leverage you have exists right now in this breath, this choice, this moment. Everything else is rehearsed suffering. The Stoics paired this principle with memento mori, the awareness of mortality, not as a morbid thought, but as a clarifier. You will not have an unlimited supply of tomorrows, which means this moment is not a rehearsal. It's the only performance. And most people are watching it from the wings, waiting for conditions to be right before they step into it. Once per day, just once, take 1 full minute and ask, what is real right now in this moment that I can work with? Not fix, not solve, just work with.
Start there, because everything you've ever actually done, you did in a present moment. All of it, including everything still ahead of you.
9 laws, one truth underneath all of them. You are not at war with your mind. You are learning to operate a very complex, very ancient, sometimes very loud piece of equipment. One that was built for a world that no longer exists. The real work of our time, the inner work, is learning to update the operating system. Marcus Aurelius didn't have a therapist. He had a philosophy, a journal, and the discipline to return to both every single day. He governed 60 million people while battling chronic illness, losing children, watching people he trusted betray him. And through all of it, he kept writing. Not for publication, not to perform peace, as practice, to prime his own mind before the world could distort it. Modern psychology gave us the language for what he knew. ACT gave us the tools to practice it with clinical precision. Stoicism gave us the proof, not in ideal conditions, but in the worst corners of a human life, that it's actually possible. These 9 laws don't ask you to be fearless. They ask you to be present. They don't ask you to stop feeling. They ask you to stop being run by what you feel. That's the work. And it turns out, you've been building toward it for a long time.